Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. Today I'm creating a two-page spread in my Arteza Watercolor Sketchbook. I already pre-gessoed the 2 pages as well as put a piece of washi tape to protect the seam there. And you're going to see my hands talking a lot because this was a real-time video that is now being voiced over. I'll be using a Daler and Rowney acrylic inks as well as one color quinacridone rose from Amsterdam. I already stamped out my images that I'm going to be using on the spread on watercolor paper, and I'll be also coloring those with the acrylic inks, which is something I've never done before. Those stamps that I was just showing you are from the Unity Stamp Company, and then the other one I believe is, I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up. And then I'll be using Ranger clear embossing ink and clear embossing powder. Just trying to get everything in screen there a little bit for you to see. And I did wash this stamp, but I did still have some black residue that came up through the stamp. So I was a little disappointed with that, but it worked out okay. So I'm just stamping here and there around both pages, mostly in the upper right-hand corner for this main image, and then in the lower left-hand corner on the other page, and then a little bit here and there on both pages. It's a little hard to see on camera because it is clear embossing ink, so there is no color to it. And in the final spread, you can't really tell what stencil I used, but the texture's there nonetheless, and it created some interest on the pages, which was lovely. And so I'm going to remove the parchment paper that's behind my pages so that I'll be able to apply my powder and tip my book without those pages falling out. So there, I'm just going to go ahead and apply that clear embossing powder. And then I'm going to grab a piece of paper here, and so I have a place to put that extra powder, because I didn't grab my little tray that I usually have. So this way you can easily pour it back into the container and then use it again. And I'm going to go ahead and put the powder on the other side as well, and then I'll heat set both pages when I'm done. Sorry for the focus. The camera doesn't like the white. It wants something to focus on, so that's why you get that blurriness. My equipment is not the top of the line by any means, so I just have a simple webcam. So I went ahead and heat embossed both sides of that, and then you can tell I'm just showing you where that ink showed up. I was, again, bummed about that, but in the end, it doesn't really show or make much of a difference. So then I went ahead and grabbed the right ink before I had grabbed the fluorescent ink, or fluorescent pink, and that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to start with the Indian Yellow. This is, again, the Daler and Rowney acrylic ink. I got an old palette out that I used to keep some gouache in, and I'm going to use that as my palette for my inks today. I just dumped out the gouache that was in it because it dries out and then it just crumbles and falls out. It's really not easy to reconstitute, so I just went ahead and just tossed it in the garbage and used the palette for this purpose. Putting my parchment paper back in the book because I want to make sure that I protect the other pages in the journal so they don't get ruined. And I'll be applying both the Indian Yellow and the Olive Green on both of these pages intermittently. I've never used acrylic ink to do this process, especially coloring stamped images, so it was really quite interesting and really enjoyable. I liked not having to think about affecting that image. If you use watercolor or other water-soluble mediums, you do have to seal it if you're going to do other things on top of it, so that was kind of nice. Then I'm just using my paper towel and gravity there to kind of sop up some of that ink. And at first I wanted a lot of white space, but I really struggle with white space in my journals and in my art in general. So again, I did come back in with other ink, more ink, and covered up both of the pages. So I decided I just needed to move that palette out of the way because I want you to see both pages as I'm working on them. Don't have a lot of landscape under the camera here. Just applying a little bit of water to get that ink to move around. And again, you can't really see the pattern of the embossing, but the ink is catching in all of those crevices and all the little nooks and crannies, which is really quite beautiful. And they're just using my paper towel or baby wipe. I'm not sure what I have in my hand there, just to kind of pounce around and lift up some of the extra ink and then move some of it around as well and easily. And then I did go ahead and dry that so that I can come in and put the green, the olive green acrylic ink on next. I really liked how the olive green worked because it showed a lot more of the texture from that embossing than the yellow did. So that was really nice. And I'm not going to go as wild with the green as I did with the yellow, so I'm being a little bit more choosy about where I'm placing it. And then just giving a little squirt of water. That just helps it to move around the page a little bit more. I wish you could see the texture. It's really, really beautiful in person, really hard to see on camera. And then again, just using my baby wipe to kind of pounce that around, lift some of the ink off, and move some of it around as well. And just a little bit more of that Indian yellow. You'll definitely be using these more in this fashion because I really liked the effect that it had. I purchased the muted collection of the Liquitex acrylic ink, and I'm really looking forward to using those in a journal as well. So there I'm just showing you the texture, what you can see. You can see that the embossing ink and powder does resist the color somewhat. It's not as bold as I would have expected, but I think it's subtle and was just beautiful for this design. So I was really happy with it. Made sure that's nice and dry, and then I'm going to come in with some splatters of the olive green just to add a little bit more interest to the spread. And then again, I dried in between before I go in with any other colors. I did decide I wanted to push back some of that color with some titanium white heavy body acrylic paint. This is from Liquitex. And, you know, in retrospect, it really didn't need to be pushed back. I feel like there was enough white that was showing through on the background that it would have probably been okay. But I'm really kind of practicing having a little bit more white space in my art. And so I thought this was a great way to kind of experiment with that since it's in my journal. So that's what I decided to do. And again, because this is acrylic ink and already dried, I didn't have to worry about it moving like I would if I was using Caran d'Ache, the Neocolor crayons, or watercolor, or any of those other water-soluble mediums. So this was nice. Now, while that dries, I decided I was going to come in and do the painting with the acrylic ink on these flowers. I will be fussy cutting them out, so it didn't really matter if I was going out of the lines. This is the quinacridone rose in the Amsterdam ink. And it doesn't matter that I'm going out of the lines because I will be cutting them out. So I just kind of get a little bit sloppy here as I move along, worried a little bit less about getting it outside of the lines, which is hard for me. I'm a perfectionist, so even though I know I'm going to cut it out, it just feels wrong to do that. But I did do it, and it was fine. So just dabbing a little bit of that ink up just to give it a little bit of a lighter, variegated look. And I'm going to use the turquoise on a couple of the flowers as well. This was a little bit more opaque than the quinacridone rose, but it ended up turning out really pretty as well because I pounced on it. And you can see that when I did that, it lifted some of the color and created some light places on the flowers. So I'm not going to be cutting out the stems. I will be stamping these images on the spread as well, so I don't need those. I don't need those cut out. So it's kind of a fun cheat, easy cheat. So there's an artist I follow on YouTube, Suzanne Rose Art, and she does this a lot. She stamps the image on her journal spread and she cuts them out and puts them on the journal page. And it's a really nice, more three-dimensional look, which I think is really lovely. So here you're going to see me start to color my girl here. And I decided I wanted her eyes to be blue, but then I second guessed and thought that I was coloring the whites of her eyes with the turquoise blue. And so I ended up restamping her, and in the end, it didn't matter because I wasn't painting the white of her eyes. As you can see, she's got really big eyes, so it was kind of hard to tell. So here I'm just thinking, oh man, I don't want the white of her eyes to be blue. And then, so here I decided to go ahead and stamp her again. So I turned the camera off and did that, and then discovered that it didn't matter because there was a white in her eye in another part there. So I was fine. So I did fussy cut those flowers out while I had the camera off. It's no fun watching fussy cutting any more than it is watching paint dry. So I just cut that out for you. I'm using the turquoise to color in her eyes, as I mentioned before. And then I did need to grab another acrylic ink to do her hair. So I ended up grabbing the transparent raw sienna in Liquitex. And I really like it. It gave her hair a really, really golden look. And I thought it was really fitting for her. So for my brave girl. She was super vibrant on the page, which was really nice. So I'm just going to let you watch as I just color her all in, kind of deciding what colors I want everything to be. I did miss part of her bangs there. As you can see, I do come back and fix that a little bit later, in case you wonder. Decided I was going to leave her skin and her face white. I didn't want to mess with skin tones today, so I went ahead and just left them white. Coming in with a quinacridone rose on her dress, and I'll come up and do the flowers as well in her headband. And I'm straightening out that edge on the bottom because I didn't want it to be kind of weird and crooked. It's kind of strange because they kind of float in the air sometimes. And they're just coming up and doing the flowers there with the Quin Rose. And I will also be fussy cutting her out. I'll use a couple different colors on her headband there and the color of the leaves. Using the turquoise there on the bottom scalloped part of her headband, and then I'll use the Indian yellow on the top part. The page in person turned out really, really cute. And it was not what I had planned or had in mind, but it was lovely. So that was just a close-up of our beautiful, courageous girl. So I'm not sure what happened there. I must have turned the camera off for something. I did fussy cut her out, and as I mentioned before, I had already fussy cut the flowers. While the camera was off, I did splatter the Quin Rose on the background. And then here I'm going to be coming around with this kind of border stamp around all edges of the piece. Using black archival ink from Ranger to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video through this part. So I just created a border around the entire spread, which I thought was a really nice addition to the pages. So now I'm going to do some stamping with the first stamp that I use, which is the that flower on the stem. And I'll be stamping that in a few places on the on both of the pages using my black archival ink from Ranger. I really like them upside down. I think they're really pretty. And I thought it was really a nice next to her. I end up positioning the girl right next to that flower when I'm done. I really like how the flower stamping turned out. I think it was just enough for this spread. At first I was looking at my girl and my flowers that I had cut out and thought it wasn't enough. And so I'm really glad that I did this. I felt like it filled it out a little bit more. I did dry that really quick just to make sure everything was nice and set. And then just showing you, here's my bucket of stamps that I just grabbed for, especially for art journaling. A lot of background stamps and just things that add interest. So I picked this one that's kind of bubbles, but you can use whatever you have. You don't have to use the supplies I have. Experiment, play around, see what you like. These stamps just create a little bit more visual interest in the background. And so I don't think it's super important what they look like. When you try them, they really add a lot to a project. So I'll be also coming in with the alphabet stamp, which is this other small one. I believe that these are all from Bo Bunny. I didn't link them because, again, the stamp you use for this part is not as important as just choose what you want to use, I guess, would be my advice. So sorry, my English is a little bit bad today, apparently. Not feeling great, so my brain is not as sharp as it should be. It could be. I just really love that alphabet stamping. I did some first generation stamping, which is stamping right off of the ink pad, and then continuing to stamp here and there to create a lighter version of those impressions. So, and they're just kind of getting my flowers in place. And then I did, when I was putting my girl down, I thought she needs something behind her. It was just too plain and like she was lost in all of those numbers and bubbles. And so I do add some paper behind her that I thought was really, really good. So I found a piece of yellow cardstock, and then I'm also going to pull a piece of a music page to put behind her. And I'm going to go ahead and edge both of those pieces with my Ranger archival ink in black, just to kind of give it a frame so that it will really pop off the page. And there's the music page. Just a little bit of interest behind her. I think it was just right. I kind of wish I had tucked a blue flower behind her ear there, but I didn't. So here I'm going to do that edging. And then also on the music page. I do try gluing this all down with a glue stick, and then you'll see me come back with heavy gel to get them to really stick on there really well. So I'm going to go ahead and speed through this process because it really is just gluing, and then you can see what it looks like when I'm done. Just getting that last flower in place. And that is pretty much the end of the project. I do cut out my sentiment, which says, "You were made to be courageous," and it is on this other piece of watercolor paper with my other girl that I thought I had messed up on. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you'll give it a try. Acrylic inks in a journal was really fun to work with, and this spread was just super delightful. So I hope that you enjoyed. If you'd like to support my channel, I'd encourage you to like and subscribe. Like the video and subscribe to my channel. If you hit the bell on the YouTube, you will be notified anytime I post a new video. I do post videos at least twice a week currently. So thank you again so much for your support. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.